to Wasi History TV for your history needs. Link in the description.
Hi there. I welcome you once again to Wasi History TV. Today we are going to do a continuation, or we are going to look at the organs or structures of the UN, and then we will also look at the problems of the UN. And basically, these are the only two things that we are going to look at today. By way of recapping, or by way of revising what we did the last time we met, last time we looked at the history behind the UN, and we saw that the UN was formed on June 25th in 1945, but the charter, or the UN Charter, was formally signed on October 24th in the same year, 1945. Okay, and we said that the UN was formed basically to prevent the outbreak of a third world war, which up till now has been able to keep that. And we also said that the languages spoken at the UN is Arabic, English, French, Russian, and then Spanish. By way, I have added the link of the previous video under this video, so you can equally go there and look for the video that precedes this one, so that you can be able to really understand this topic well. So today I wanted to look at the organs of, or the structure of the UN and the problems of the UN. You know, every organization have structures, and structures are the mechanisms, the working mechanisms of every particular organization. And so that is what we mean by structure. And so we are going to look at how the UN works. What are the structures in the UN, and what are their functions, and why are those structures important? And then we also look at the problem. So let's begin with our lesson objectives. So our lesson objectives for today is simple, that by the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify the organs or the various structures that the UN has, and the workings of these structures. And then we should be able to discuss the problems of the UN. What are some of the problems of the UN? We should be able to do that in the course of our discussion, or at the end of our discussion. So keep this in mind as we move on with the discussion. You take notice of these objectives and make sure that you know them by the end of the discussion. Quickly, let's go in there and look at the first structure. So the first structure or organ of the UN, the first structure or organ of the UN is the General Assembly. All right, the General Assembly. And the General Assembly is the supreme body, the supreme body of the UN, and all members of the organization are represented, okay, in the General Assembly. And if you look on your right, this image here shows the meeting of the General Assembly. Okay, now the Assembly considers and approves all applications of new members to the body, and matters concerning world peace and also security are also discussed by the General Assembly. Okay, the Assembly also meets once in a year. They meet once in a year, and the Assembly is addressed by the General Secretary and visiting heads of states. So the General Assembly consists of the visiting heads of states, and the Assembly meets once a year, and they do, approves all applications for new members here and there. And then they also, discuss issues concerning world peace, since it is about peace, and that is the work of the General Assembly. Good. Let's look at the next of the organs. So the next of the organs is the Security Council. So this, as you've seen in the image here, this is the Security Council. Okay, this is the Security Council. As you've seen them under a meeting. Now the Security Council is made up of 15 members. So in all, 15 members form the Security Council. Now 5 of these members are known as permanent members. And these permanent members are the United States of America, the USSR, that's the Union Soviet Socialist Republic, now called, of course, Russia. We also have Britain, then we have France, then we have China. So these 5 countries are known as permanent members. However, there are 10 other non-permanent members, and these members are elected by the General Assembly, okay, and they serve for only 2 years. The main function of the council is to work for the maintenance of international peace and security, and that is basically the work of the Security Council. So whenever there is a war in any country, it is the Security Council that will quickly issue a warning or issue a statement regarding the situation at hand. Now, what it does is that it can apply sanctions and other measures apart from war if a nation threatens world peace. So if they find out that nation A, your actions towards nation B threatens world peace, they can apply sanctions on your country. It can also apply military aid as the last resort, and decisions of the council are taken through voting. But the permanent members have the power of veto. So it means that if all the 15 members, if all the other 10 members, if all the other 14 members agrees that this is what we should do, and just one permanent member, which is USSR or Russia, Britain, France, and China, decide that they are not in agreement with that, they can veto, which means they can cancel all the decisions that the other 14 members have actually made. And this is a big problem in the UN. And so today you realize that Russia, which is a permanent member, is attacking Ukraine. Yet the UN is quiet. Nobody can attack Russia. Nobody is telling Russia anything because Russia is a permanent member or a permanent state. And so all that they can do is to sanction Russia. And so today you've heard that there are there are sanctions that a lot of sanctions have been given to Russia. Okay, we will look at more about the veto when we get to the problems of the UN. But now know that the Security Council is to ensure and maintain international peace and security. Okay, good. Let's move on to our next organ. Our next organ is the Secretariat, and the Secretariat is responsible for the general administration of the UN. And they are the ones, as you've seen, they are building over here. They are the ones who are found in San Francisco, and it had its quarters in New York. All right. Now it is headed by the Secretary General. Okay, so we will have the Secretary General who will head the Secretariat. His term of office is 5 years and could be renewed if his work, if he works well. And Ghana or Africa, we were lucky to have the first black General Secretary or the Secretary General of the UN in the person of Dr. Kofi Annan. Yes, and he was the first African to be elected or to be appointed to that state, and he was in charge of the UN. Good. Let's look at the Trusteeship Council. This Trusteeship Council was set up to supervise the administration of the trust territories that were still under colonial rule. So this council was set up during colonial days. You know, there were some territories that were known as trustees' territories. Okay, for example, when you look at the Togoland, Ghana-Togoland issue, it was under the UN trusteeship. Okay, and some other countries or territories. So, but now this council, I don't think is quite effective now. So let's look at the next council or the next organ of the UN. Next organ is the International Court of Justice. Okay, so the International Court of Justice, as you have seen them here, that we call the Hague, the International Court of Justice, that is the main judicial organ of the UN. So which then means that if any country threatens world peace or commit any atrocity against other country, the cases or that person or that country is brought to the International Court of Justice. Okay, if there is any issues regarding two countries, what happens is that it is being settled here. And very often they also try cases of presidents who have caused some sort of civil war in other country or even in their own country. And it is sad that most of the times it is the African leaders who are brought to the International Court of Justice. Now Putin is at war with Ukraine, but I don't think that even though the UN has said that it will bring charges against Putin, but that is not going to happen because you can't bring Putin to International Court of Justice. He won't come, and nobody can do that, mainly because he is a superpower. You know, he's part of the permanent members. Now, the court gives ruling in disputes among states over international treaties and agreements that has been signed, over the period. Good. So let's look at the next one. Yes, so we are done with the organs. So I'm sure, by now you are good with the organs, and let's quickly look at the problems or challenges of the UNO. One of the problems or the challenges of the UNO is the veto. We have already indicated that any country, one of the countries among the 5 permanent members, as you have seen them here, have the power to veto all that has been agreed upon by the 193 or so members. So it means that if China is not happy with a particular decision, he can veto all that the 193 or all that the 14 permanent member states have agreed on. And quite example, when Trump was in office, he said that Israel should go and take Jerusalem as the capital town. And that was that was not agreed by most of the member states. Most of the member states voted against that. But Trump did not listen to them. He went ahead and made Jerusalem the capital town, moved the embassy of the US from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and nobody listened. When Russia was about to attack Ukraine, all the other countries voted against that. But Putin did not listen. So it is a problem. The use of the veto, it sometimes makes it difficult for the organization to take firm and concrete decisions affecting the permanent members or their other, of course, cameras. Now, the UN also lacks a standing army. A standing army means that an army which is ready to fight, which is ready for war. And the UN lacks that. So whenever there is a problem in other countries, what the UN do is that all the member states bring in their troops. They send in troops. So very often you hear that soldiers or Ghanaian police are going for peacekeeping. It is mainly because of the fact that the UN has no standing army. So whenever there is war in another country or peacekeeping, they need to come together to bring, whatnot. And that is basically an issue. It's an issue because this makes it difficult for the organization to enforce its resolutions sometimes, sometimes. Good. Let's look at the next of them. the limited power to control the permanent members. So the UN has limited power to control other permanent members, and it is just because sometimes you realize that these permanent members will invade smaller states. Okay, they do invade smaller states, like what is happening. For example, the West invasion of Libya, American invasion of Vietnam, and currently the Russian invasion of Ukraine. You see, the UN, can do little because these people or these states are powerful states. They are permanent members, and so it becomes very difficult to control them, and that is how come you find it here, and so that makes the UN quite look some way, in terms of what do you call it? In terms of operations, The last one was that the UN also lack fund. Okay, the UN also lack fund. They are mostly, the UN is mostly, they get their money. Their sources of fund is mostly obtained from the dues that member states pay, but very often it faces a lot of inadequate fund. And I remember when they decided not to allow Trump to take over, to give Jerusalem to Israel, what happened was that he told them that he would cut aid to the UN or the WHO, and all of that quite makes it makes it very difficult for the UN to actually do the things that they want to do. Good. So this is an assignment for you. I hope today we've had a very nice conversation, and I hope that you try your hand on this work, and let's meet some other time. Thank you for your time. Subscribe to the channel, link it to your friends. Have a nice.
Watch the history movie. Learn some lucky quotes. Bye.